So we will be talking about, I think, Gail, about election of two new officers per our bylaws. Once they're elected, just run out the term, and then again at the first of the year we'll have elections again. So it's just a couple administrative things. Otherwise, I leave the floor to Gail.
Only by a value of age.
Liz Robertson, I'm representing DPR, replacing Michelle McCowan.
Welcome.
Brad Bowles, Silver Key, Senior Services, I'm the Transportation Supervisor.
Joe Urban, Area Agency on Aging.
Stu Smith, I'm with Concord.
Good morning, Dick Hive, Community Intersections. I'm the Transportation Program Manager.
Greg Hare with the Yellow Cab Company. Resident Dinosaur with Joe.
Historian.
Legacy person. And I don't know what that role that makes me besides newbie, but Courtney Stone, representing the Independence Center.
Scott Phillips, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, Mobility Manager.
Sharon Brown, I represent the City of Fountain.
Jim Godfrey, I'm chair of the PPRTA Citizens Advisory Committee.
Reb Williams, PPRTA CAC.
Majority, the Rehab Transportation Coordinator for Discover Goodwill.
And can people in the seats, please introduce yourself?
My name is Karen Logan, and I work for Department of Human Services. I'm the Director of Administrative Services.
And I'm Kelly Flayton. I'm here for the Fountain Valley Senior Center, Administrative Technician.
My name is Lawrence, and I am with the Coach Transportation.
Ted Schweitzer, Transit Manager, City of Cripple Creek.
And Gail Nels with Ambicap. And we had someone that just joined us, Barb Bailey with Dressmart, Colorado. Thank you. And now welcome to you are recording all this in minutes for us, so thank you for being here. Welcome. I believe you PPACG. So everyone had a chance to look over the agenda, and am I making additions or comments on it?
It's fine.
If I could add a couple of things, or maybe mainly just a request for an update on the Joint Call Center. Is there any information about that? And a quick check-in on the People's Choice Drivers Awards, I suppose. So I'm going to add that to, I guess, 7A. There's the call center update and the, maybe under public comments, would you like to make that for your, the People's Choice Awards, 7? Perfect, that'll work. So do we vote on the agenda? Yes. So do I hear a motion from the floor to approve the agenda?
Move the so motion.
Sure.
There you go, you got it.
And second? And all in favor?
Aye.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? That's so long. What month was that?
I believe that was back in January. I think we did something in December, January.
January, wasn't it? I think it was January.
I think it was a pretty quick agenda. Everybody's okay with what we discussed last time?
It's so important we don't remember.
Yeah.
I know there were a number of people that were absent. Just I think it was the time of the year, and it was a pretty quick meeting.
So any comments, I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So now, we are moving quickly ahead to agenda item number 4, public comments. So maybe, Courtney, you could lead us on.
Sure. So I think there are some people in the room that are familiar with what I'm talking about, but the IC is doing we're celebrating progress in transit for our ADA luncheon in July, and as part of that, we set up a process for nominating People's Choice drivers from the 4 different open door agencies and Metro Mobility and Mountain Metro Transit. So if you are an agency, so Community Intersection, Silver Key, Fountain Valley Senior Center, and Amblicab, if you have any nomination forms, if you can get in touch with me about passing those on. And then I was actually going to ask if there was anybody on the MCC committee that is not on any of or a part of any of those organizations that would be willing to sit in on a selection committee meeting. So it's an hour once just to kind of talk about drivers and kind of see what the feedback is. But wanted to throw out the opportunity. We're looking at May 16th from 11:30 to 12:30. It's right after the TPAC meeting. We scheduled it that way. So if you're a TPAC member, you can just stick around afterwards. Is anybody interested in jumping in?
I'll be more than happy to do that.
Scott and Liz? That'd be awesome. Perfect. I'll follow up with all of you guys then. But we've got probably 100 nominations, if not more, already. And that's not counting any of the other organizations. So I know Community Intersections dropped off a bunch in our IC box. So you guys get your stuff turned in and use this last. We're ending everything as of April 30th. So if you can get nominations in by April 30th, then we'll have a couple weeks to get them together and then look them all over on May 16th.
Do you have a date for the luncheon yet, July?
July 29th. And if your name wasn't on, if you haven't gotten an invite yet, I'll follow up with you.
I don't think I've seen it yet.
Okay, sounds good.
And where?
It's going to be at the Doubletree, I think, this year. Yeah, and I'll have invitations
Okay.
written out for you eventually. And I think that's it. But thank you guys for the partners that have gotten involved with that. It's been really cool to kind of see some of the cool stories and positive feedback from some of the riders. So thanks.
Yeah, I think our drivers are some of the unsung heroes, and not just RET, but everyone that does this work. How meaningful the transportation is to them. So thank you for elevating what they do to the community and residents. Any other comments? I have one thing I'd like to add is, so on Thursday, I will be going up to the state legislature to testify at the Senate Transportation Committee as part of the changing the regulations for non-emergent medical transportation. I mean, I think as many of you know, it's a quite restrictive process that has to go through the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, and there's a lot of interventions and administrative law judges involved for what we have to do to get that certification. And frankly, it's quite expensive to even maintain that. They have to have DOT physicals, there's different stages on driver onboarding and application. So it's quite an expensive process for, frankly, a small nonprofit to deliver this kind of service. Yet when we work with the Regional Care Collaborative here in Colorado Springs, and we talk to the people that are utilizing this kind of transportation, how important it is to them, as well as how thankful they are and appreciative. And one of the comments I'd just like to share with all of you is, oh, thank you so much. You don't make me feel like I'm poor. And I think that just is a symptom or emblematic of what we do in the community. We treat people with respect and compassion, all of us here. So I'm not sure it's how the Senate is looking like they will approve it or not. We'll see. And I'll try to get a reading on that.
What changes are you trying to make to loosen the restriction, or loosen the qualification process?
So my role in this is just to, be the story behind the legislation. And if division heads at HIPAA, trying to move forward through this. And so we're trying just to loosen it up and to kind of unhook such a restrictive process. I mean, it took us 2 years. And frankly, what we do here is we do it at the service of the community. It's not just because we think people, I'll make a lot of money or anything like that. We're just trying to do what's right. And it was very arduous. So it is to loosen up, I think, to relax some of the regulations around it. So I think there is some belief that it will move forward. But I will get a read on that on Thursday. We'll talk to, so I'm working with the pastor group, the Colorado Association of Transit Agencies, and their lobbyist, to see where we get. I mean, I testified at the House Committee, and, we worked with Representative Terry Carver on the Transportation Committee earlier to try to understand and provide the story and what role we would play. But, we had talked to the HIPAA earlier, and then I wrote a paper back in the summer of 15. Really, I think was used as part of that legislation crafting, because the work is all done in the fall before we bring it to the legislative session. So we're excited, and that should open up things for the community, because frankly, I think with the expansion of the Affordable Care Act and more people accessing Medicaid services, getting to the doctor is really important. And we're working on a national and federal, state level, national level, to improve health outcomes and reduce health expenditures. Managing the health is really important. And so all this is, from a taxpayer point of view, trying to reduce health expenditures while improving health outcomes. So that'd be the story that I will be relating on Thursday, if given the opportunity to testify. They'll do that with us, to me. But anyway, so that's what I'll be doing, and hopefully that'll result in some changes. I'm not sure how long it will take to get some approval of the statute.
What senator is carrying the bill?
I'm sorry, I was just notified of the Senate being coming to testify yesterday afternoon.
So okay.
I'm sorry. I know that Carver was part of it.
She's a rep, yeah.
Right, she's one of the senators.
Do you know the bill number off the top of your head? Taglines, yeah, I can Google it if you know.
I knew the House bill more than the Senate bill.
Okay, no worries, don't. I'll follow up with you.
So I thought you said this class 101. And then, if I may, from a public comment, I just, and it's kind of dovetailed in the comments here, is I just want to make sure that when I'm representing, the voice of our community of the state legislature, is that, I'm proud of what we do and all of us, what we do and how we serve the community in the way we do. And I don't think that there's anything for any of us to be groveling or overly solicitous for people that hold the funds, because we do the work of the community for the community. And I just really think we as members that serve this community have an obligation to move their voices forward. And so I guess I'm trying to say, when I ask for funds, I ask for funds, but I don't think I have to be overly apologetic about what we do and how we use this money.
No.
And so I'm not sure what I'm saying outside of, I encourage all of us to stand up and be more vocal and represent the people that we serve, and make sure that their voices are heard at these local and state and federal levels.
What is the fiscal note on this?
I think it was in neutral.
Okay, okay.
Right. Well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not the soapbox, everybody else.
Just one thing that Drive Smart is doing this Friday, the 29th, from 8:30 to noon. We're going to put
CarFit is a 12-point checklist that you go through with older drivers to make sure that they have fit in their cars better so they can drive safely. And so we're offering that over at our office, which is at 955 West Marino Avenue. If anybody's interested in taking that training to work with older drivers, you can even do a one-on-one training with folks to see if they're fitting in their cars okay. You can give me a call, and my number is 444-7534.
What time is that again?
It's from 8:30 to noon
And Friday?
on Friday.
And what is it you're doing?
It's called CarFit. It was a program designed by AAA, AARP, and the American Association of Physical Therapists, or Occupational Therapists, sorry. And it's a 12-point checklist, and so it's a training to become a technician to actually do that checklist with drivers. You're not evaluating their driving, just seeing how they fit in their cars, because, you know, cars do a lot of things now. Seats go up and down and back and forth, and steering wheels go up and down, and now a lot of folks don't realize all these tools that you can do, or adjusting mirrors so you don't have blind spots, those kind of things.
Interesting. Okay, anything else? So some of the people that walked in late, would you like to introduce yourself?
Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metropolitan Transit.
And people from the sitting at the audience?
Yeah, I'm from, Lawrence and I were from Coach Home Care.
Okay.
We met
Yes.
at the training
Yes.
2 years ago, a year
Yes,
ago.
yes.
And then so we we started with pretty much private, like Bayo. Have you heard of Bayo? Private wheelchair transportation. And then now we also do the waiver program, non-medical. Also, we just got our non-emergency medical just last month, and we're actually trying to bill, and we're having a hard time. So anybody billing non-emergency, oh, please, okay, I'll talk to you. So our business office is having a hard time. That's our third call to the health department this morning, and they don't even know sometimes themselves.
That's very true.
Exactly. You know, Zach, you were with me when Zach was trying to help you. And so we do the non-emergency medical now to people's, to doctors' offices. We do wheelchair, and we have a PUC license that we also gonna trying to fight the yellow cab because they think they do the same thing we do, but they don't. And so the yellow cab is wanting to restrict what we do, but I think we will prevail in the sense that we really work with people who need medical, healthcare related services without a taxi really driving company. Therefore, we shouldn't be restricted based on what they think anyway.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And
Stacy Dossel with Rocky Mountain Healthcare Service. ACE and Brain Care Services.
yeah, thank you. Okay, so any other comments, public, private? No. So agenda item number 5, election of new officers. So could you guide us, please, Scott?
So I pulled up the bylaws, gone through them, and let's get them here. And the bylaws, which were last updated in 2013, has a selection of officers. Now, again, our chair and one of our co-chairs, they left their positions and have moved on. They're no longer part of the group. So I will open the floor up for nominations. Again, the term will be for the remainder of this year, 2017, move forward and have elections in January, I would assume. So open the floor for people nominations for a co-chair and 2 co-chairs.
So what are we obligated to nominate for? I mean, usually they have some kind of...
Well, we lost our chair, Jennifer Wilson. She moved on, so our chair is moved on, and also one of our second co-chairs has also moved on. So
we're looking for a chair, a first
chair,
vice chair, and a second vice chair?
Well, you're interim chair, so you were first vice chair. So you'd like to step forward or move forward, that would be great. But again, open the floor for nominations, and I'll leave it to the chair.
Well, the floor is entertaining nominations at this time. Wow. Okay.
Everybody rushed to the front.
Yeah, we're just all right, I will be the interim chair, because I'm already acting in this capacity. So now, if I may, that sounds kind of weird, proffering my own. But,
I would like to nominate Gail to serve as chair for the rest of the term.
thank you, I'm so honored.
Do we have a second? We have a second? Okay. Moving on. The floor is open for nominations for co-vice chairs, 2 positions.
So let's take a vote on the chair, and then we move forward to the,
Right.
because you want? And then, all right, all in favor?
All in favor, aye? Aye?
Aye.
Nays?
Next. Okay.
Now we need
Unanimous.
2 vice chairs.
Thank you, I'm so honored. Next. So first chair.
First co-chair.
Co-chair, okay.
Floor is open for nominations.
I know, you guys are killing me. So I'm looking at Courtney or Fred or Dick over there, just.
Courtney, you can't, I know you're petite, but you can't hide behind the podium.
I'm trying to hide from titles if I can. I'm happy to serve.
You know what, I've never paid my dues in this committee, but on the other hand, we're private sector, and I'm not as familiar with government as some of the others.
It doesn't matter.
I think that would be refreshing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not going to matter.
The onus is extremely heavy. So we have a nomination. Do we have a
Oh, am I allowed
second?
to second it? I'll second it.
Vote on the floor? Aye? Yay?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Nays?
Any nays? Phew.
And second co-chair.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Dick.
Little enthusiasm.
We have a nomination.
Well, do you accept the nomination?
I would have seconded it, but I'm sitting right next to the guy.
He might hit you. No. Yeah.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
All right. Aye?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Congratulations.
No.
Well, there, look at us.
Welcome
Okay.
aboard. We will be sending out, we'll be sending out your hoodie packets and all that stuff shortly.
Terry's going to be thrilled over this one.
I'm sure she's welcome. Yeah.
Yes.
Vice chair.
Second vice chair. Yeah.
You only have to do an executive with both Gail and Fred.
Yes, yeah.
So,
Make sure they get here.
we'll go ahead and get all our information updated and make sure everybody has that. Hopefully before the week's out. We should have it all done. I don't think it should be an issue. I think, Gail, moving forward, there was we've discussed internally here about moving these meetings rather than doing them monthly. I was finding that there wasn't a lot on the agenda to have to just do them quarterly. If there's something that's urgent or that something important comes up that we need to have a special meeting, I thought, we can send the email out and send the invite out and get that put together. But with regards to quarterly, I think we'll have a little more agenda items and remove something from your monthly agendas, and we'll just do it quarterly. It's up to if you guys agree, if you think that's works for you, and we can get a motion on the floor for it. We can do that, and we would keep our same schedule that we have now with regards to dates. So our next meeting would be at the end of July, and then we do something in October and then January, and it's.
Right. And I just would like to review what is the purpose of this committee?
Sure.
And then what is kind of our expected, well, from the purpose, what are we trying to influence or deliver to the community? And I think that's an important thing for us to just review at this time.
Sure. And here, this is part of the bylaws, and again, I can make this available to everybody. I don't believe we sent it out last time, but the responsibilities as it's detailed, coordination of transit grants, so that would be like Faster, 5310, and any extra new fund money or whatever that shows up. To inform and advise our board of directors regarding the issues you guys are facing and some of the challenges. I know recently, we had a long discussion, a couple discussions about the non-emergency medical transportation and the challenges that you guys are facing. And that's a bill I don't even believe that we've been tracking here. And so that's something that needs to get referred forward.
I think Rachel does.
Did she? I don't know if she has that one on the tracking. That sounded new to me, but. And again, coordinate through the services, provide the forum to have the conversations, the events and other things that are taking place with the agencies. Hopefully working towards consumer-directed services. Again, provide a forum for information and education. Assist the targeted demographic groups that we look at, so seniors and mobility challenged. Create a periodical review of the inventory, provide information, again, more information, education. Again, it's part of the 3 C's, communication, collaboration, and coordination. And that's essentially, I think, what the group was essentially originally set up for.
So, and how do we measure ourselves on these kinds of things?
That's a good question. I didn't, in my review of what has been done in the past, I really didn't see how it was being measured. And that's something as a group we can, figure out. Essentially, I think a lot of it comes down to one thing, is that it's grant coordination. I know 5310, there used to be JARC and New Freedom programs, 5310 through FTA. And those were, as the MPO, our responsibility is kind of the third-party group that conducts the application process, the review process, and as a group collectively, once the programs or the projects have been selected, collectively pushes them forward, moves them up for funding, and also with Faster. So a lot of it was fiscally related. But there are other things that we could, be coordinating and reaching out with groups. Are there other groups that might be able to benefit from just knowing that these services are available in the area? Again, that's
and I'd like to poll, the group, and Lisa, have it written into the minutes, what we kind of thought we accomplished in, 2015 or with Angel here. And I just think, we do need to focus on not just meeting, but what are we meeting about and how are we moving this forward? And I think we all are aware that public funds are shrinking, and so we have an obligation to really understand what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And so let me kick off. I think part of what we accomplished in 2015 was Angel's ability to expand the group of people around the table and to have a broader conversation about who is providing transportation and understanding the community that we serve better. I think that would be something that we could recognize as an accomplishment for 2015. Anybody, because you're here, I never heard of your group before, so I'm glad you're here. Yeah.
No, it was really Angel. We met her through, we got our older driver grant, and she came in as part of our group. She said, hey, why don't you come be part of our group? And so that's how we heard about, this committee. And so, I think it's good that we're, finding out about each other.
Mm-hmm. Mr.
You mentioned the public education, the public funds diminishing, whatnot. I think that this group collectively could do themselves good by educating some of the people that are in the public funding process for what you need and what you need public funds for, where your shortcomings are in nonprofit organizations and your inability to raise monies, or how you can leverage public money through your nonprofit and or vice versa, on how those public funds can help accomplish the goals. And I think that some of the people that are involved in the public funding process are ignorant of the total. They understand what it's about, but they don't understand the nuances of what that are about. And I think collectively, you as a committee could gain help those people gain some insight into how you use the public money and how useful it is and how profitable it is and that kind of thing. So may put together a committee or something, and the Area Agency on Aging plays a role in that too, in terms of through the PPACG and others. But collectively, what you're doing to the community and the citizens of the community is very important, and it's a void that public transportation can't carry all of the burden, doesn't have the ability to do that. So it's really a united thing combined with public transportation. But I think you can gain some insight into city council and other folks in terms of the public funding process and the county.
Rachel, back to follow. You have a transportation bill that I'm not aware of where it's at right now, but it was going to cut $750,000 out of public transportation.
Yeah, the faster.
Yeah, the faster
That was a
one.
faster. That bill, I believe, has been.
That's been killed.
It's dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Well, we finally, thank you.
Well, and just, part of that was, CDOT, we were talking to the Division of Transit and Rail going, guys, you need to stand up, you need to start advocating. And so I think now they are seeing their role in a slightly different way too, like to advocate for what we're doing with these funds and what it means. That it isn't all about roads, it's more, there's a transit piece.
When I first started coming, I know that there's a little bit of competition among people in terms of, because you're competing for the same group of people, and there's a little bit of competition between agencies in terms of whatever. But I think that sharing your data, collecting that data, so you have a larger, broader view of all the services that are being provided, goes a long ways to show what you are doing for the community in terms of supporting this population. So,
I get a couple phone calls, maybe or so a month, from some seniors that are mobility challenged. They don't have the funds or the access to. They don't even know how to use the bus system. We're lucky we have a great ambassador that we work with, and just hearing their challenges to get, it's day-to-day life, and I think that's something that you touched on earlier that is forgotten, is that just getting to Walmart once a week to go buy groceries or something, and just the social interaction too. I was having a conversation a couple days ago with one of the ombudsmen here. And there are a number of people that they're not in the Taj Mahal type nursing facilities, but they're still ambulatory and they'd like to get out. However, they're not being provided the access and the opportunities to go to the senior center. And as we were talking the other day, I was reflecting back to when I was living in Florida, and because of the humidity and heat, the malls open up early. And it's all the senior centers come over there, and it's like a track meet. And it's a great opportunity for them to socialize. And I've been out to I guess it's the mall way out north.
Chapel Hills.
Chapel Hills. And I mean, even on a Saturday, it's like a desert out there. And I was thinking to myself, wow, what a great opportunity. They could get some socialization outside of their compounds, for lack of better terms, or where they're living, and get some of that social interaction, and also get some physical exercise, especially given the claimants here. I think it's supposed to snow Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, no, really?
That's what I saw in the weather. So it's like, to me, it's kind of kooky. But again, I look at it, in Florida, the heat, they're not doing it. But here, I mean, especially in the wintertime, I mean, that's something I think as a group we could be looking at and trying to figure out where are these facilities and how can we reach out to them, at least to get them involved in the conversation and figure out, do they have the transportation available on site to provide that, but also if they don't, how can we work with them and help their clients or their residents get to the senior center to play bridge on a Tuesday or something, or get out once a week, if that's all they can do. I think it would be a great opportunity as a group to look into that area and see what we might be able to do. So, yeah.
Is there anybody here from Regular and Option?
Rocky Mountain Options? No.
No? No, the RICO program, no?
We do some RICO stuff.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, this is our goal. That's where our goal. I coach a non-medical transportation contract with Medicaid, and for the purpose, because we also work with a bunch of assisted livings, we partner with Solange at Apple Tree and Solange, and then so the goal was we had maybe 4 facilities so excited about we're going to provide an activity bus.
Yeah.
And then we're going to use these the non-medical waiver under ACBS to get people out in the community. We found that nobody, for some reason, at Option for Long-Term Care was willing to, it's been a year, nobody's given us those powers back. They make it as hard as possible to get these powers. You know what a power is, right? The pre-approval.
Prior authorization.
So the way it works is that it has to be pre-approved by Right Mind Option, and then you were able to transport these people. And so we had done 5 facilities, get them to these caseworkers. Until now, it's been a year, and they have not even trickled down. And so for some reason, the caseworkers are telling us now they don't think it's a necessity for some of these people to go out because they don't think they need to get out based on their mobility. And what I'm thinking, well, we are a wheelchair company, and this is a goal is to get people who cannot get out. And then so we find it it becomes a barrier as far as the role of Rocky Mountain Option, as far as I'm concerned, in our effort to get people out from these assisted livings and from their home to activities. I don't know if you guys experienced this. Anybody else here doing non-medical transportation?
Yes. And so what I'm hearing, if I can kind of summarize what you're saying is to, as a group, collectively leverage our knowledge and experience with the need of our services to these single entry points like Rocky Mountain Options, like TRE, to move through the criteria or the metrics that they have to meet through the state legislature to approve what we need to deliver the service for the people. I mean, so I think if I can summarize it, that we can do that as a group and have greater credibility and legitimacy when we ask those organizations here at the local level as funded by the state to be more responsive to the needs of the communities we serve. Is that okay?
If we could gear towards something of the sort, I think it would help. Maybe bring one of them here to understand what the goal is, what we're trying to do.
They have been in the past on occasion, and so maybe we should be more intentional about inviting them. And so let's do that. So I want to summarize. So as we're moving on moving to a quarterly meeting.
Well, and I guess the quarterly meeting isn't finalized, correct? That's
Right.
under discussion.
Yeah.
And I guess like my takeaway point from this is that if we go to quarterly meetings, we are not going to be able to coordinate it will be a challenge to get things done with one meeting every 3 months if we're actually trying to do I mean, if it's just information sharing and that's all we're doing, quarterly might work, and we can probably make that work, but if we're actually trying to accomplish anything as a group, I don't know that quarterly meetings are going to be enough. And that's just kind of my thought. I'm not huge on extra meetings, but if I'm going to come to one every quarter, I'd rather have them be more effective.
An option might be one every other month, or
Yeah,
you
to
know,
bi-monthly.
bi-monthly versus quarterly.
Yeah, bi-monthly.
Brian, you have something?
Yeah, I think it would be great if you could stick to a quarterly meeting, but I don't think that's very realistic. With, action items, they're going to come up infrequently, and, you'll have to take action on 5310 awards, so you could stick to 4 meetings a year, but you could end up with, 7 or 8 meetings a year. So it's going to be very, very hard to do that, I think.
Another thing about group dynamics is that sometimes structure keeps you together, and if you start not meeting often enough, you lose interest. That spot in your calendar is filled in with something else. Your interest waned. You've all got full plates of things you're trying to do. The structure of a quarterly meeting, it doesn't have to be a 3-hour meeting, but at least you're here. The issues are discussed. You get the coordination that you're trying to do. You're agreeing to goals, and you're trying to stay focused. And so sometimes getting away from that structure, you tend to lose interest, and you dissolve eventually, or you become non-effective as a group.
Could we look at the bi-monthly meeting?
Right. And let me just say, I think when Scott and I were talking and Joe were maybe quarterly, some of that was because I didn't feel we were accomplishing things. And so if, with your permission, if I'm to lead the organization, if I could have a little bit more directive and a tighter focus on what we're trying to do at every meeting, I think, one, we'd all want to attend more because we're getting something done. I don't know about you, but I think most of us do measure on what we, did I get something done today? Did I move the ball forward? And so, I think that's fine. I'm not opposed to meeting monthly, but I think we need to have some kind of accomplishment. And I know information, and so Courtney, help lead me through the community organizing process, because, sharing and talking, I have a hard time, maybe making time in my schedule for that. If I know that I'm going to get something concrete or moving it forward, I'm much more apt to participate. And I didn't know if I was, if I reflected, a larger group's, thoughts and opinions. So please, I open it to everyone else's, comments here. I don't want to feel like I'm running the show.
Discussing the possibility, there's no motion on the table.
That's right.
I thought I heard somebody say we were going that direction, but I don't remember a motion.
There wasn't.
It seemed like the best way to handle it is somebody make a motion to go to quarterly meetings and then defeat it or accept it. And then you have your discussion, or if you feel like we need to set up a committee, make a motion to have a subcommittee to look into this. It sounds like we don't really know what our bylaws are. Why are we together? We need to know what kind of authority we have, what weight do we have, or is it just suggestions or whatever. I agree that, and I'm speaking, I make a motion that we do not go to quarterly meetings.
It's on the floor, second?
Second.
Okay.
Now's where the discussion is.
Well, thank goodness. All right, so let's discuss this.
I agree that I think we would lose some of the continuity. I'd love to have quarterly meetings. I got enough on my plate to do anyhow. But I agree that you're going to lose something, because what do we typically, we're looking at stuff, it gets really important the week before a meeting. Now that week before is going to be 3 months out.
Sure.
If we find that we want to be more proactive in accordance with our bylaws, it would be a good idea for us to get on that right away. So I don't think it's a good idea to move, so my motion was to not go to quarterly meetings, keep the monthly meetings.
That's kind of a non-motion, isn't it, to keep it the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you vote on something like that? Vote to keep it the same.
Or vote.
So the motion on the floor is to maintain monthly meetings. Motion on the
Okay.
floor is to maintain the standard meeting schedule that we have.
Yeah, Dave?
My thought would be, I mean, there's so much that needs to be done, and whether we have the capacity to actually do those things within limited resources is sort of the question. But we've never, in my memory at least, had a discussion about, is there a goal that we as MCC want to accomplish this year? Is there one specific thing that we as a group can buy into? And thinking within, I didn't mention this in public comments, but the city's adopting an age-friendly city initiative. And as part of that, transportation, I'm on the transportation committee with that. And there are so many things that apply, that are needs, that apply so directly to everybody in this room that are coming out of that strategic plan. I feel like if we looked at that and kind of all of the other goals we have from all of these massive long-range plans and got one thing we could do in 2015, I would be happy to buy into monthly meetings. But if it is just going to be information sharing, then I think it makes sense to go quarterly. But I wonder if we could meet for a couple more months on the monthly schedule and revisit maybe in 3 months and see if we want to, because I don't feel like there's any, we don't necessarily have to make that decision today as far as meeting schedule. So I don't know, it's a thought. And I think I'm leaning towards continuing monthly meetings, but that also depends on your leadership.
I serve at the, yeah, Dave?
Yeah, I really hate to say this about a meeting, I truly do, but I look forward to these meetings because I learn so much. And I think if you have a meeting scheduled monthly, it is easier to cancel a meeting than it is to schedule a meeting. If the leadership decides that no meeting is necessary, an email goes out and says, cancel, you got a free morning. Versus a week before, an email goes out and you have to rearrange your schedule to make a meeting because of some issue coming up. So I go back to, I think that networking is good, the information is good. I learn a lot of these things. And I don't think I've learned as much coming quarterly versus monthly. And again, it's easier to cancel a meeting than it is to schedule a meeting.
Just to speak in favor of that, there's a subcommittee, in the dark ages, we did meet quarterly, but stuff happened. Somebody passed this ADA law. Down the road, somebody got the idea that coordination would be a good idea. And in those periods of time, even as a subcommittee, we went to monthly meetings. Now we're not a subcommittee any longer, but a committee. Just judging from the concerns expressed about the room, monthly sounds appropriate, at least for the time being.
Well, and I'll just add, I hugged people coming in the room. That I'm happy to see everyone, and that we were already informally sharing. So if we can move, any other comments regarding the schedule?
Call the question.
Pardon me?
Call the question. That means you vote.
Vote.
So let's vote on, thank you. Brush up on the Roberts. So,
So many chiefs.
So can I summarize, so that it sounds like the motion is on the floor to maintain a monthly schedule meeting for now. Is that correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Or I should say second. Sorry. Second, and then all in favor? Aye. Okay?
Ayes have it.
So it sounds like we're meeting, when's next meeting?
Next month, well, we'll have the agenda out. And one other question, I know last year Angel had put together a monthly list of presentations. We're fortunate today to have El Paso County will be given a presentation later on in this meeting. I'll send that back out to everybody, and if you are still on that, if you still have plans or are planning to make a presentation, let me know so we can have that on the agenda too. And that's the only thing remaining regarding our agenda, so, and meeting schedules. So, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Scott, for leading that robust discussion.
You want me to go through the call center update now?
Please, yes.
The
call center is, basically we're at a three-phase process with the call center. The first phase is getting route match implemented with the individual providers. Second phase that we were shooting for is to get the databases integrated. They are currently integrating those databases. We had a great meeting with all the providers last week, I believe, and standardize the terminology, the fields that we're using within route match. So they're in the process of doing that. They estimated originally, I have not asked them in the last couple of days, but they estimated originally somewhere around 4 weeks to complete that process. So hopefully we'll be using a merged database. I'm assuming that it's going to be, there's going to be some, a little bit of training once that comes together. But everybody will be able to see each other's rides. There's kind of, I say it's a three-phase process. Phase 1 being route match, phase 2 being integrated database, phase 3 being the joint call center. There's kind of a 2.5 in there, which is not only do we have the databases merged, but you are able to schedule rides on other providers' schedules. So we're going to have some time to get from 2 to 2.5, and we also assume that there probably will be a little bit of training when we get the databases merged in terms of what you can see and what you can do on somebody else's. But thanks to the dispatchers and the folks that do the work on the ground, because that meeting went really, really smooth, and we had a good integration process. Any other questions about that?
What is the call center? What is it all about? I'm kind of lost.
It's an opportunity eventually for folks to call, actually they can do it right now, call a single number and
For the city?
For the city, to be able to initiate a specialized ride, specialized transportation.
And can you just review who will be under that call center?
The four current providers are AmeriCab, Silver Key, Community Intersections, and Fountain Valley Senior Center, El Paso County Fountain Valley Senior Center.
How are they working out the funding situation? Because if you do cross rides and you have a ride from someone who doesn't have authorization for your agency to bill, how are you getting past that? Because that was always the biggest sticking point in the whole process.
We're not. Basically, you wouldn't accept that ride if you weren't capable of taking it. So if somebody who had an ADA ride to the mall took somebody there, and they couldn't take them back, the only person that could pick that up was somebody else who had the qualifications to bill for that ride. The rides are all one-way rides, so that's not a problem. It's not like we're billing, we're breaking up chunks. But that's one of the challenges that the group faces is looking at that. That's one of the things that Route Match actually will provide a great deal of help with, is you'll be able to see that graphically. So Joe, with Route Match, the software will be able to accommodate the limitations of a company for instance, not being able to bill. The software will know that company can't bill that stuff, and so will it automatically reject, or is that a checklist somebody has to go down? It's a dual system, and I would throw the first caveat in there, is you're talking to probably the 6th or 8th most qualified person in the room about Route Match. But basically, Route Match will tell you that, and the 4 people who are sitting in this room from those organizations know what everybody else does anyway, so that's kind of a non-issue before it ever even gets to Route Match.
So, yeah, and so as a trip request comes in, we tie it to a funding source, and then whose vehicles are available, or whose vehicles are available, and what funding sources are they allowed to accept.
That's basically what we went through last week, was what are the qualifications of the individuals, and what can we bring together that we know everybody can do.
Yes, sir?
So what was I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. What was your timeline as far as when somebody makes that phone call, when those dispatchers will have that availability? We're looking at all the different providers and saying, oh, this person has availability, this one doesn't.
The databases are supposed to be merged within approximately 4 weeks. We know those dates are approximate.
One question. you know, I receive phone calls from people looking to trying to figure out how to get a ride somewhere. Will this, and some of the services they need, typically, I think the county and I won't say AmLCAM, they need 24 hours prior notice or so they can provide that service. Other ones need up towards a week or so. Is this going to compress the people's ability to get? Is it going to be direct access? Are they going to be calling to make an appointment for the next day or the next 24 hours or something?
One of the commitments from all the folks in that group was that we don't limit the customer quality that they're delivering already. So that's actually a point under discussion right now, is what is the appropriate time? And I believe preliminarily, I think they were looking at 48 hours, is that what?
Right. I mean, so it's a restriction of capacity on the vehicles and what can we do, because we couldn't, so we're not a cab company that is a true demand response. I need a ride in the next hour.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. It's just the differences between a number of the service providers. Like I said, some of it was a week's notice ahead of time, and some of it, like I know MMT, was 24 hours. So again, there just seemed to be some difference. And so when I get a phone call from somebody, and after I go through a little bit of the screening and conversation, I deal with them, find out, I've gotten calls, I need to get to the doctor tomorrow, and it's kind of like, well, do you have your Medicaid ID card and this? No, I didn't. And it's kind of, and Gail, you and I have talked about some phone calls that I know I've received. And again, there are some challenges there. So that's just something just to think about to make sure that everybody's delivering it. If you're going to maintain that, the service, everybody maintain a consistent, if we're going to call, it's 48 hours in advance to make those appointments.
So I think, Joe,
With this setup, it's basically a functional reality that if
Yeah.
it's a space, you're going to get it. If
Yep.
it's not a space, you're not going to get it. So
Yep.
call as far in advance as you can.
Yeah.
And the group will try to establish some parameters. 48 hours has been the preferred minimum time period. Now, it depends on availability. And
Yeah.
we have 4 providers, so that's how it's going to.
Will there be some marketing behind it once it gets finally done to get the word out? That one-stop number and.
Ryan, look at you.
Some is already out.
Well, and I think that's part of that mobility management piece or whatever, funding that's coming from, we'll look.
To give people a perspective who are not familiar with this process, it started 8 years ago. We've been working on this for that long. It's moved slowly sometimes, but hopefully we'll come to the end where we're all looking towards, which is coordination of services.
Well, wait a second. I think there's someone behind me that wrote a paper back in how many years ago was that?
10, 12.
It's been on the,
It's got to be on that one. right?
Yeah, I know, there you go, 12 years ago.
You joined the Historical Society we're forming here.
So when somebody is just interested in signing up with, say, AmLCAM or something, they still would go through them first, and then they would just use this number to schedule their ride after they have run that application.
Actually, right now, they can still call anybody they want to schedule rides. The phase 2 integration will allow everybody to see everybody else's rides, and therefore it really allows the group to maximize their ability to provide rides. You may go out to the hospital on AmLCAM, you may come back on Silver Key.
Will clients all be required to have the Medicaid, the ID card that Mountain Metro provides, or is that something that's going to be waived?
I think, it depends on the funding source, and I think we'll be working with the city to adapt some of maybe their contract requirements to better fit delivery of the service.
Sure.
So I know that, Silver Key modified some of their, mission statement. We've modified some of our mission statement to try to accommodate the needs of the community so that we're able to do this. I mean, the intent of all this is to really deliver more rides to the community. The next problem or question will be, as we're delivering more rides, where's more money coming for to deliver those rides? But, I mean, especially as we see what's going on, I think we as providers will be better able to articulate the true demand, and as Jim said, educate the legislators and the funders as to what that really is, and maybe the part that they can play by releasing more funds into the community.
And as I understand it, the only specialized qualification right now is an ADA card, right? Is that what we're looking at for those rides?
Well, but the AAA is 60.
You think 60 or over, but there's no identification required. You just have to say you're 60.
And then for Medicaid rides, it's their Medicaid number, and if their service plan allows for that. And if they're developmentally disabled, their service plan having units available for transportation. So we are all having to juggle these requirements, and that'll be, as we're moving towards that joint dispatch and call center, what does that mean? And working with funders to help us, deliver more rides.
Yeah, see, I had the question when just that, because we are a for-profit, and I was talking to Scott about this a while ago, because we're not really after funding. We are just wanting to make sure we know what's happening in the community and also know how to coordinate with other agencies. And so even if we were, it looks like you have to be a nonprofit to receive those fundings. Therefore, we're not going to be even competing for them. But of course, we do serve our Medicaid, which is, there are two types of program under Medicaid, which is the NMT and the NEMT. And so I'm hoping that we could participate in your efforts to coordinate this. And now we just have to know what the criteria would be to when people call and how to let people know they go to Coach versus Silver Key, which is a nonprofit organization, and I don't know, somehow coordinate all that.
We can certainly get your information, and I'm not sure what the requirements are of the grant. I would assume it's probably nonprofit, but I'd be happy to talk to you.
Okay.
Right, it was nonprofit for the city, yes. Sorry.
But again, we get paid by Medicaid, and that's the only thing. We are mostly private. We do a lot of nursing facilities and also our rehab facilities with our wheelchair vans. But we also do the Medicaid and the NMT and EMT for Medicaid. So therefore, we'd like to see it in coordinate with your agencies and participate in those efforts, I guess, to let people know those services are available to them.
So are we done with the call center?
Any other questions? Keep you updated.
Thank you, Joe.
So next on is the FTA 5310 grant process. So is that Scott, Joe?
Well, we'll pull this up here. I believe it was back, I want to say it was back in October. Brian, you might be able to, if you could provide some insight to it. I think it was September or October, Angel had a meeting or held a meeting to discuss the 5310 process. Now, this is something that's been, and I didn't attend. I really don't know what was discussed. 5310 is a funding source from FTA. It's allocated to the city. The funds, FTA gives it to state. State sends out formulas. City of Colorado Springs is a direct recipient. Eligible activities funding can be used for capital as well as operational costs. I believe 45% it can be used for non-traditional projects.
Is this a fact sheet from FTA?
This is an FTA fact sheet, yeah. And I know there's been conversation with regards to some of the funding. I believe we receive, the estimates I looked at was about $430,000 to $40,000 a year. The city receives from FTA for 5310 funding. In the past, my understanding in looking at past history, those funds have been used both for operations and also vehicle purchases, capital expenses. But I do know that there has been a conversation about utilizing some of the funds that are received for getting the call center up and running and paying for the software and the equipment and the needs for that, for the facilities there. Again, there's still only a certain amount that can be utilized for that type of project. And we're kind of running towards the end of the year, and wanted to find out from you guys about moving forward and starting the process and working with the city, MMT, to put the applications out there and do an expedited application process. And looking at what was done in the past, I don't see really any reason that we would have to make any modifications to what the process was done previously. I want to put it out there on the floor, and I think, Brian, you might be able to answer some of the questions better than I can, and anything that you can add would be greatly appreciated.
Well, no, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I know Rob and Joe have been meeting with Craig Blewett and staff from MMT. So there's a lot of momentum behind the call center, and obviously we'd like to see that get fully funded and get implemented, but we also want to put out there that, based on what the providers need and what the community needs, perhaps there could be a set aside off the top that would be for operating needs or capital needs that you guys didn't get through faster. So, it's basically up to the group, but it is kind of a coordinated effort between, PPACG conducts the process, and the city's involved at some level, so it is a coordinated effort.
Yeah, Jim, because I think you've been sitting in on some of this process, so please, yeah.
As with Courtney, I think that
Right, that's
participated
right, that's right.
in that process before on the evaluation application. But if I remember correctly, MMT was kind of they kind of headed up the process, so to speak, as in the past.
Well, yeah, we do a program management plan where it kind of outlines how the process should be conducted. But it is pretty much all the coordination and the organization is done by PPACG staff. They provide the selection committee.
I facilitated it last year. I can't remember.
I like to, I was getting coffee, but so just to kind of recap, the 5310 funds are federal funds.
Correct.
And because of, MAP 21 and now the FAST Act, this urban area is, the city of Colorado Springs is now administrating these 5310 funds. And so then, I think the city, MMT, has said, well, we don't want to be in charge because we're also in the pool, so we're going to ask PPACG to conduct, this competitive process to award these funds. Am I right?
And it goes both ways. PPACG has been a recipient too, so there's kind of checks and balances between having both of us work on the process. So,
and I think, the process itself, one of the things I think we need to do is find out what the allocation was and have that discussion. Again, looking at the estimates, I believe it's between $430,000 to $440,000 annually, and have that discussion. If we're going to slice something off the top for capital and operational competitive application process, and then have reserve the other eligible amount for just if everybody would be agreeable to it to go towards the call center, and then we can go through the competitive process and then move forward.
Well, and as I understand it, the guidelines are it has to at least be 55% capital expenditures. It could be 100% capital expenditures.
Yes.
It's just been the 45%, I think, was part of this fact sheet to include a historical, those historical programs, the New Freedom and the JARC,
and New Freedoms,
5316 and 5317.
Yeah.
But as you, and maybe to educate everyone, though, what happened was when they swept this 5316 and 17 into the 5310 program, there really wasn't more money.
No.
And so as we all know, the drug of choice for every agency is money. And so when the funds shrink, we're all kind of going through withdrawal. And so what this means to us is, as our demand for these services has increased, there's less and less of the drug to go around to feed what we need to do. And so, so part of this conversation today is, I think, to understand, where the people with the money would like this to go, and where we as a group would like this to go, and to see if they are mutually compatible in meeting our missions and being responsible for these public funds. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I would think also have a conversation or an agreement. Will the call center make a demand future 5310 funding to maintain its operational status? And that's just a question out there. Is this going to be something that annually they're going to, let's say, take 45% of the, or 50% of the allocated funds that come to the region? Or is it something this is a one-time shot and they're going to move forward and pursue other grant opportunities and or other funding sources or resources, or something that the county and the cities will all underwrite? And I think those are good questions to put out there.
If my failing memory serves me right, I think we funded 50% of the mobility manager's position last year out of that 5310 funding.
You're correct.
They had asked for a full year, and I think we funded 50% of that, if I remember correctly.
Well, and kind of a historical perspective from AMBLCAB is we were the recipients of the New Freedom Funds, and so it was almost originally like 70,000. And so when we were cut through this compressing process and this competitive process to now, it was in the fiscal year that we're going to be closing out, 40,000, we as frankly, community partners delivering rides, when we don't have those operating funds, I'm not quite sure how we can make up that $40,000. And true, we cannot expect those, but once again, we're addicted. And I also want to stand on the legitimacy of our addiction, though, is that we are serving the people in the community, and not just because we made up these people, but because they're coming to us and asking for rides. So we are, I would like to represent, AMBLCAB's need into serving the community, saying, I understand that we are doing a joint dispatch and call center. I do understand that it needs to be funded. I do understand that it'll be difficult to implement and that it needs these funds. But at the same time, I would like to also represent the people that we serve that just divide, that 40,000 that we're not getting into those unserved rides. And yes, we can think that the call center will be more efficient, but it will be a while before it becomes more efficient. And so I would just like to lay it out at the table that maybe, we can look at some kind of dollars, that are going towards operating, and maybe it's part of our 12-step plan. To continue that analogy, but I just think I have to say that because of who we're representing, and to let you know, and the legislators, to know that we are denying 400 rides a month for people requesting services. So we welcome people in the private sector to come in and take that. But there's people that can't even afford the $3.50 a ride from a city perspective or whatever to meet their needs, to stay independent in the community and non-institutionalized.
I know myself, I've received phone calls from people, and they ask me how much does it cost to take a assisted ride or a dial-a ride, as I used to call it back west. And I'm like, $3.50, and literally, I had one guy's like, I don't have $3.50 in my bank account.
If you have a monthly income of $900 a month, that's a big disposable
That's a lot of money.
chunk.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, sir.
Jessica, when you were we're talking about the night rides, the 400 a month. Is that, so like medical appointments, or are we talking about the clients that can't get to or having troubles getting to Walmart for groceries, or are these doctor's appointments?
And we're seeing a lot of the work appointments and the adult day programs, because those people ride, 4 days a week. And when we deny their ride, that's difficult for them. And then as these developmentally disabled programs are migrating from, federal initiatives to be more out in the community and not so location-based as a goodwill setting, they want to go more out in the community. Well, they're looking at us to help support, their fleet to get them out in the community. And so we are having a hard time meeting those demands.
So like for socialization, they could be considered, that's mental health.
Yes?
So it could be considered medical transportation, right?
No, because medical transportation, under the non-emergent medical transportation, they have to be a medical provider, and they have to sign a piece of paper that person saw them. And so it's not, in my terminology for a medical ride is very legalistic definition. But, people at community intersections serving the developmentally disabled, I don't think they consider those medical rides. It's a socialization, and that might be a social determinant of health, but under all this statute and definitions, that would not apply.
So possibly, I think maybe Brian, Joan, Rob, maybe we can get back together and sit down and come to, put together some options and bring them back possibly next month at the next meeting and open that conversation again. Is that, everybody comfortable with that?
Well,
Yeah, when are the funds pumpkin out?
Gail?
Yes, sir? I'm sorry?
Tap you on the shoulder. And Joe, maybe you covered this. I think in our discussions with MMT, we're thinking the call for project is probably a couple months out, because we want to look at the burn rate and the needs, because all the funding, because some of the providers got vehicles through like Faster. And so part of the 2-year request for 5310 was for vehicles. One of the asks, and I'll ask it now, if you got all those vehicles in that 2-year request, we may not have a need for 5310 money to go out immediately. And so between AAA funds and Colorado Springs funds through their general fund and through the RTA, the Faster money, there may not be an urgent need right now for the 5310 process to get underway. We're thinking we want to look at that and then maybe bring it back to you in a couple months and then do a call for projects when we know how much money we're talking about and gauge your needs. Because if everyone needs, collectively 10 more vehicles, well, that's news to us, because a lot of vehicles have been going out funded through other ways. And so the call center is not imminent as we're doing the integrated database, so that can wait a little bit. And so the other needs, and Gail, you talk about operational funds, those the burn rates may be okay to, existing contracts may be okay for a few months or the rest of the year. I know for mobility management, we have enough money to go through the end of the year. So for PPACG and our mobility management ask, we're not asking this year. So think about that as we meet again and then bring back to you maybe a schedule for a call for projects, kind of look at burn rates, look at what the needs are. The 5310 money doesn't expire, which is the good news. It'll just roll forward, and then we can catch up to the need as other funding sources come in, and we get a gauge of where that is. So I thought I'd offer that.
I might add, I've got the copy for those of you that don't know the process. There's for the Faster money, which is predominantly capital. I have the collaborative letter that we sent in as a group that says here's what the Faster requests are going to be for this area, and they're projected through 2018. So if anybody doesn't have that information, they're welcome to see it.
And we can make that available if you want a copy. Just, feel free to email us, and we'll get that out to you, too. And I believe the Faster process is more like a collaborative group effort to really allocate those funds. And I know The funding that comes in through the FAST Act, I want to say it's like maybe, what is it, about $300,000 a year for, that's not a direct allocation, and MMT gets an annual $700,000 direct allocation. And if that process, again, if these processes that worked in the past are okay with everybody, we'll just maintain that and update the dates on them, if you feel comfortable with that. Any additional thoughts?
So I want to summarize what I think I heard, because I have a hard time moving forward. So so is it a month or is it 2 months that you'll get back to us regarding the 5310 process? 1 month?
We're still on monthly schedule.
Okay, so you're okay with that, all right? So, and part of that will be, is it our obligation then to come to the next meeting as community partners, understanding what our needs are, what we've applied for, what we've been awarded, and what we're projecting? Is that correct? Can we say that? Would that be helpful in this process?
Certainly would be helpful.
So let's
It would
give
advance
ourselves
the
an
process.
action item to come prepared as, recipients of these funds, what we ask for, what our award, and what we're looking for in like a time horizon of 2 years. Rob, how far are you looking ahead, or?
Last time we did a 2-year cycle, and
Okay.
that's Brian, MMT 2 years seem about right.
I think so, yeah.
We'll start with that.
If everybody's agreeable to how it was done previously, we'll just maintain that type of course.
I think so.
Well, the process is codified in the agreement between MMT and PPACG, right? I mean, so the process is defined. Whether you have to change that agreement if you're going to change the process.
So just leave it.
I doubt we're going to change the process. We'll just do a call for
Yeah.
projects, just in the schedule. But when we gauge all your needs based on all the funding you've received, it may be like, well, there's not a huge need out there. Maybe it's call center, a vehicle or two, and some operating. But again, if that money is better used next year, okay, maybe we don't do the call for project until later this year.
Sure.
I mean, congratulations, everyone's been successful getting money from different sources.
Right.
So that original 2-year list, I think, maybe all fully funded by various sources. So, wow, that's good. Let's do another 2-year list.
Well, and I think part of our success with the FASTER program was that, we did convene as a group and we did prioritize, and so CDOT did view that application more favorably. And so the people around the table, we should, yay us, because I think we met the intent of the legislation, and it did help move us forward in the awards process from a state level. So wait a minute, that's a result from 2015 too. Yes. Yay, more vehicles. All right, so thank you. Any other questions? Or is it clear what we're doing? Good. So I think we're looking at item number 8. Brian.
Sure, thank you. This Sunday, we'll be implementing our spring 2016 service changes, where we're continuing our work toward improving the overall productivity and performance of our local fixed route system, increasing frequency on those high ridership corridors, providing improved access to high employment areas, and just overall trying to improve our service for our existing customers, but also make it more desirable to attract new riders. This is about 5 or 6 months in the making. We released our proposal late last fall. We had 6 public meetings in January. We had 140% attendance increase this spring for our public meetings as opposed to last spring. So that's a combination of proposing some severe changes, some controversial, but mostly with the intent of making those hard decisions and those hard changes that will improve our system and make it more efficient. But also, I think there's a general uptick in people being interested in transit. And so there's a little bit of that going on. And also just, we did a ton of outreach last fall, meeting with community groups and neighborhood organizations and all of these committees and boards in the region here. So it's been a good process. We're looking forward to getting this implemented and starting the planning for our fall service changes. If there's any questions, I believe there's a brochure, final brochure in your packet, which highlights mostly what the proposal was. There are a few revisions that we are not implementing. We're not pulling Route 9 out of the Cragmore neighborhood. We're still going to directly serve UCCS. We came up with a solution. We're going to have 50-minute service on North Nevada from Mount View south to the downtown terminal before 9 goes through the Cragmore neighborhood to UCCS, and 19 will serve the new Eagle Rock transfer center that UCCS has on their new parking facility. And we'll also have 15-minute service on South Nevada down to Southgate. So from Mount View Lane in the north to Southgate in the south, we'll have 15-minute service, which is another huge improvement for us. The other change that we're not implementing is Kelly Johnson Boulevard is a loop on the west side of Academy Boulevard, served by Route 39. We're not going to be eliminating that. We'll continue running up there. There's a big Goodwill facility up there, right? So.
And the college.
What's that?
And the college.
Yeah. And then we had a good suggestion from Michelle McGowan, actually, at one of our public meetings about where routes 8 and 12 intersect with Nevada Avenue. We're going through Nevada to the west side of Nevada, so people who are heading downtown can stay on that side of the street to go downtown. So that was a smaller change, but a very, very good suggestion. So yes, we don't have a whole lot of service on Sunday, so that's kind of how we ease our service change in. But we expect there to be quite some curious people Monday morning wondering where their buses are and why things have changed, because despite all of the public outreach and the press releases and just the media coverage, there's still some people who are unaware. So we had an Ask Transit event at the downtown terminal yesterday. We'll be out there again tomorrow. We'll have staff out in the field on Monday at the terminal and some of these transfer locations trying to answer questions and help people along. So
You providing armored vest for some of them?
well, it's not required, but it's probably recommended. Yeah. So, are there any questions?
So you're saying the Sunday services have changed?
No, Sunday service is just we have very few routes that operate on Sundays, so we just always do our schedule implementation or service change implementation on a Sunday, and then that Monday we expect the big changes to happen. So.
Good luck. Any questions for Brian? Okay. Next up, presentations from El Paso County Department of Human Services.
So, hey, it works. All right. Oh, slide. My eyes are getting worse and worse. Here we go. I give you the floor.
Thank you. This is quick, so I don't know what time your meeting ends. I thought it was 11, so I apologize.
Go fast.
Be very fast. My name is Karen Logan. I'm the Director of Administrative Services at the Department of Human Services, and this is an overview that we created for our administrative staff for when we're doing these types of presentations. This This is a list of all of the administrators at the Department of Human Services. They're actually called directors rather than administrators, but Rick Bankston is our director. Chris Garvin, who I believe participates in this group, is our executive deputy director, and he shares those responsibilities with Eric Cephas, who is unfortunately our last day here with our department. So, but then the other directors that are included, Cheryl Schnell, who handles our aging and adult services, which includes both economic assistance as well as our adult protection issues. Shirley Rodas and Marion Percy share the responsibilities for all things protective of children, families with children. And Becky Jacobs handles the economic assistance. And then, of course, I'm doing administrative services, which includes our contracts department, our staff development, and facilities. We partner with a lot of people, much like it sounds like what your group is doing. It is necessary for us to partner because we are not or could never be meet all of the needs of this community. And so there's a lot of partners that are on this listing here that we partner with either through formal or informal partnerships and collaborations and contracts and things like that. And so as the largest community in the state, we're the largest county, El Paso County is, then everyone in the state, in the number of people that we serve, the number of children in our community, the volume of all of our programs, we continue to be pretty high among all of the other counties across the state. And so partnering is a big deal for us. These are just some anecdotal information regarding our child protection area. We started tracking the number of calls that we received on our child welfare hotline, which is now not just the state 1-800 number, but also our county numbers, but we've started tracking those. We received almost 27,000 calls this last year. Of those calls, about almost 15,000 resulted in reports. And then, of course, we whittled things down to the number of calls that actually require DHS intervention, and of those that families that we meet with, how many result in a founded allegation and so on. And so it's just some anecdotal information. Again, numbers compared to the top 5 counties across the state when it comes to child protection, you can see we're pretty high up there. Not necessarily do I want people to take away that we're a community that abuse or neglect our children more. We're not. We're, I believe, a community that cares a great deal about our families and all of our at-risk populations. And so the increased number, I believe, is because we're a more involved community that cares a lot about what happens here. We can see some areas that we've worked on to improve for families. And again, we've seen some reduction in some of our programs and increase in children being safe and families receiving services. In the adult protection area, you can see we have a similar trend where in the top 5 counties, these are the number of referrals that come into El Paso County compared to the other the other 4 large counties in comparison. We're seeing a huge increase in our adult protection issues, and part of the reason is because, one, our mandated reporting laws changed, that we are required, anybody that is a mandated reporter, which is a large population in this community, required to report any allegations of suspected abuse or neglect or exploitation of the elderly, which were defined as 70 and above. As of this July, coming July, that is going to also include our at-risk adults. So not just the elderly 70 and above, but also anybody that is developmentally delayed, severe significant medical issues, things like that will also be included in that mandated reporting. Thankfully for us, the state has recognized that our numbers continue to increase, and they have increased our ability to hire additional child welfare staff as well as adult protection staff to meet the needs that we have in this community. So we are going to be bringing on more caseworkers in both our child protection and adult protection areas to meet these needs that we have, and the state is going to be funding those for us. Some of the adult protection programs, there's a ton. So our adult protection that all encompasses not just economic assistance or not just adult protection, but also takes into account the economic assistance that are needed in that population. And because we talk about adult programs, we're not just talking about elderly programs. We're talking about once a person reaches that magical age of 18, if they are still in that need category of being at risk or having developmental issues, and all the way up to the elderly population, we continue to provide services that are available to them. And you're welcome, by the way, to share this PowerPoint with everybody so that you don't have to, listen to me regurgitate it back to you. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm curious, our drivers, not just Ample Cats, but others, they go into the home so they can observe a lot of things. And so not only they, we do on occasion contact adult protection services, but is there training provided or to help them understand at what point do they have to report things? Because if someone said hoarding is not something that has to be maybe dealt with, but anything that looks like neglect does. And so how to differentiate that and how to teach our drivers what that looks like is where can we go to get that kind of training?
Well, a couple of places. We do offer mandated reporting training.
Okay.
And that does include outreach to communities for even people that are not mandated reporters. Depending on whether or not your folks fall under that mandated reporting rules, there's some online training that you can go to CDHS.
Okay.
Which is the state website, and at the CDHS website there is mandated reporting tutorials. They're about 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops on what kinds of things to look for. And the distinction with mandated reporting rules for that at-risk adults and the elderly is a little bit different than the child protection, because child protection rules focus around what the caregiver is doing or not doing for children, whereas the at-risk adult population, doesn't just include the caregiver's responsibilities, it also includes their own abilities to care for and protect themselves. And so when you bring up hoarding, we look at, is it unsafe for that person based on their needs, but also do they have the capacity to do and make some of the decisions that they need to be able to protect themselves in that process. And so we have a whole training that we can provide. If you want to contact us, we can provide it to you. You can also direct people onto the website that can do that. But maybe my experience has been that because El Paso County is so unique with our public transportation is a great example of our uniqueness that does not meet the same criteria of the Denver metro area and things like that. It might be better suited to have somebody come and talk to you about what to look for, the kinds of things that are available, how they can contact, and what kinds of things we might do if a call is made.
So can I refer that maybe as a group, we have a training session for our drivers of maybe, is it an hour to recommend that so this would be a result of the MCCC that we are facilitating training for drivers to be aware of their reporting requirements. So I can ask that as an action item.
Yeah, sure.
And the good thing is probably because of the funding that the state has been able to provide us for the new mandated reporting rules for the at-risk adults and the elderly, we have co-funded a position with the police department, Colorado Springs Police Department. And so likely what will happen is that entity as well as a DHS caseworker can come and talk to you about here's what it's going to look like, what you want to look for, and then here's what it might look like in what we will do back. And so I will absolutely share that with Cheryl Schnell and her staff to make sure that they are prepared. They do lots of trainings like that in the community, and it's absolutely, we're more than happy to do outreach and education on those things.
Thank you. Yeah, because I think the drivers are the eyes and ears often into those homes, and they are concerned, some of the foster homes, about the care of the people.
Yes. And I think that goes back to my point of we are not a community necessarily of higher offenses to at-risk populations. I think we're just a better community. I think we do a much better job at protecting our at-risk populations. And so that's all part of that training piece of it. So of course, we would be more than happy to help you with that. These numbers here, are you talking about this?
The back one.
Oh, the one that I just showed you?
Yeah, I'm looking at, that's just for El Paso County.
This is just El Paso County in economic assistance. So again, we're the largest county in the state. When we talk about, for example, the food assistance, $9.3 million a month.
That's $120 million a year.
It is, absolutely. And so what the numbers will tell you is that, we have a large number of people that are living just above the poverty level that are able to qualify and meet the criteria for being able to receive these types of benefits.
Employment first, you get 56,000 clients. You still got 50,000 that are in the program unplaced.
Well, and not necessarily. So here's the thing about food assistance is that a large number of our people on food assistance are employed. They're just underemployed. They're not employed enough to be able.
I'm talking about the first one, Employment First program.
Right.
So is that kind of, explain those numbers to me. It tells me there's 56,000 in the program and you found jobs for 6,000 of them.
Well, some of them face unique challenges. So there might be some issues where medically they may not be able to meet the criteria for employment. So we may refer them to.
I know, what's the population of El Paso County? I know Colorado Springs is about 500,000.
It's close to 750,000, just below.
So, I'm looking at, 10% of the population, 8% of the population is in that program.
Right. But, okay, so let me put this into perspective. When you look at the term clients, remember that a lot of clients are children as well. And so families receive benefits. So when you're talking about 70,000 distinct clients, that includes families of mom and dad and their 3 children, 4 children, and so on and so forth. So,
But I may be nitpicking here, but this is an educational program. But the program says employment first. So you have kids in that program who are not eligible for employment?
well, kids aren't in the Employment First program.
That's my question, is we have approximately 10% of Colorado Springs in the Employment First program. Even though this is a county program, I'm boiling it down to.
So Employment First is a program that supports our SNAP program, which is the food assistance program. Okay, and so that's where people that are involved in Employment First funnel from. So when I apply for food stamps, if I'm an able-bodied adult, meaning that I don't have any limitations that prevent me from finding employment, I would be referred to the Employment First program as an able-bodied adult. And that's where that number comes from. So of the 56,000 people that are referred to that program, they come out of the 70,000 that are coming from the SNAP program. They're not independent. People can't go into Employment First without coming funneled through that program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but it's just an astronomical number.
It is.
This is education. I didn't realize that. I never realized El Paso County spent $120 million a year for food assistance.
Well, first, let me be clear. El Paso County doesn't spend that money. All those funds are federal funds, and we don't match that number. It is a federal program that is federally funded. So that money that is paid every month, it comes from the federal government. But you're correct in that it comes through the Department of Human Services that we are responsible to. We're a state supervised, county administered department. So they give us the mandate that says, here's what you need to do. And through the SNAP program, we determine the eligibility of those benefits. And yes, through that process, then people are funneled through Employment First programs, the TANF program, which is people may qualify for both SNAP and TANF, and those people in the TANF program are sent through a different employment program, which is not Employment First. And so there's some other categories, and you have to also remember in your food assistance, that's all families in El Paso County that are receiving benefits. So if you have at-risk adults, if you have the elderly, things like that qualify, they're not going to obviously go through through Employment First because they're not considered able-bodied adults. Yeah. So it's kind of I'm cautious sometimes when I talk to people because numbers can tell you, I think, kind of what people don't understand is that it's not an exact, like, here's what you have, and it looks like what looks like this means it's actually something there. Our Employment First program is one of the most successful programs across the state, even though it looks as if 6,000, do we count that as a success or not a success as far as families go? We do work with people that are underemployed as well to try and help them to those next levels and things like that. But that's kind of how the program, these numbers tell you we funnel through this program to get to this program and this program. There are some programs that are self-referring. For example, we work very closely with why did I just draw a blank? The Workforce Development Center. And those are self-referring programs as well. And so sometimes if people are working through the Workforce Development Center, they may not necessarily be referred through Employment First. So there are supporting programs. That visual that I gave you about all of the other different programs that we partner with, we use a lot of those programs to support some of these as well. And then we also look at voc rehabilitation. We have a large military population, so we use our veteran services and things like that to help with people in that population also.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry about that.
That's right. No.
All right, so this shows you the overall funding sources. Of course, some of our programs are 100% federally funded. Some of them have state matches, and then some of them have a 3-tiered match. But what it basically comes down to is all of the money that is spent through the Department of Human Services, only about 8% of it comes from the county. The rest of it comes from state or federal funding to provide. And it's going to vary depending on certain programs. Some are 80-20, some of them are 50-30-20, and depending on, but this is basically what the county share is to the funding. So $17.4 million is what the county has to provide in order for us to do the services that we do through the Department of Human Services. Okay. And then we have some other community collaborations that you probably get a little bit more media attention, like our Feed the Children, like our Christmas for Kids. We have programs that support kin-like adoptive families and things like that. And so those are some collaborations that we have to work with communities on helping meet the needs of the families that we're serving. And that's it. And you are welcome to call if you would like. Call me, call Chris, talk to us about any of the additional, if you want very specific information about any different programs or opportunities or anything within the community. It's a little bit hard to cover so much in such a really short period of time.
So I have a question. So Eric Cephas is leaving the DHS?
Eric Cephas is leaving, yes, to go back into the private sector. And he is our deputy executive director, just as Chris is.
Right.
And he has been handling our community collaborations and our detox center, which is at this point moved under to the Department of Human Services. But it's a separate program that's not necessarily funded through that funding stream that you see. That's the county, state, and federal.
Yeah, because we often see Cheryl at some of these meetings. Okay. So she's still there and working with us.
Cheryl is still our director of adult programs. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So action items for the next MCC meeting. So our next meeting is May, and I will be out of town, so Fred, congratulations. You'll be. Yeah, sorry, yeah. But I think we all need to come prepared for that meeting is regarding the 5310 funds is, what was applied for, what was awarded, and what we think will happen in the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. And we have that information here.
Good.
Yeah. So, and I could put that together.
A summary sheet would be great.
Yeah, I'll put it together and send it to you, give me a thumbs up. Add that.
All right, so any other comments? Meeting is adjourned at 11:20. Yay. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Mike, for